Hello guys, today our discussion is about hypertension. So let us start from the basics. So let us see what is cardiac output. It's nothing but formula for cardiac output is heart rate into stroke volume. So everyone know what is heart rate? The rate at which the heart pumps per minute. So what is stroke volume? Stroke volume is dependent on three factors. So let's see. First, preload, afterload, and contractility, mainly left ventricles. So what is preload? It is nothing but the load to left ventricle. So what is the load to left ventricle? That means the volume of blood. That is the load. So where does the volume comes to the left ventricle? From our venous return to right atrium, and then right ventricle, and then to the pulmonary circulation to the lungs, and then back into left atria, and then goes into left ventricle. So this is how the blood comes to the left ventricles. So the preload is nothing but the end diastolic volume. So we will know about this. When the heart contracts, it's called systole. When the heart relax, it is the diastole. So what is end diastolic volume? We already know diastole means relax. During relaxing, the heart is filling the blood. So end diastole means at the end of the filling. So before the time of contraction, what the amount remains in the left ventricle is your preload. Clear? Here we have to know about the law, the Frank-Starling law. What does the law say? If there is increase in volume to the heart, there will be increase in contraction. So increase in volume to the heart means there will be increase in end diastolic volume. So if there is increase in end diastolic volume, then there is increase in contractility. That means you are increase in contraction. So if there is increase in end diastolic volume, there is increase in contraction. So this is what the law says. If there is increase in end diastolic volume, there will be increase in contraction. So what will happen if there is increase in end diastolic volume? End diastolic volume is nothing but preload. If there is increase in preload, the stroke volume will increase. So here the stroke volume is increase. So what is cardiac output? Heart rate into stroke volume. If there is increase in stroke volume, the cardiac output will increase. So there will be increase in cardiac output. Afterload is nothing but your aortic pressure, because your left ventricle pressure is lower when compared to the aortic pressure. So your left ventricle has to pump against the pressure of the aorta. That is your afterload. So increase in afterload means increase in resistance. That is the pressure against the aorta. So there will be more resistance. So if there is more resistance, there will be decrease in cardiac output. So increase in afterload means there is decrease in cardiac output. So let us get into our topic. Our topic is about hypertension, which basically means increase in blood pressure. So what is blood pressure? Formula for blood pressure is cardiac output into peripheral resistance. We have already seen about cardiac output. So what is cardiac output? It's nothing but our stroke volume into heart rate. So what is our stroke volume? Stroke volume is nothing but N diastolic volume minus N systolic volume. We already know about the N diastolic volume. That means the volume of blood at the end of the diastole. So if we want to get the systolic volume, we have to minus N diastolic volume minus N systolic volume. What is N systolic volume? It is the volume of blood at the end of the systole. So if you minus both of this, you will get the systolic volume. So what are the techniques for measuring BP? We have palpatory method. By palpating on your radial pulse or brachial pulse, we commonly use auscultatory method. By using your sphygmomanometer and your stethoscope, you can hear your BP. But the best method for measuring BP is 24-hour ambulatory BP. It is currently the best method to detect BP. The sounds you hear when auscultating BP is called Korotkov sound. There are 5 phases in this. Phase 1, you will get tapping sounds. Phase 2, you will get soft swishing sound, but you basically can't differentiate. This is just for your theory. Phase 3, you will get crisp sound. Phase 4, you will get blowing sound. Phase 5, there will be no sound, there will be silence. Beginning of phase 1 is your systolic BP and the end of phase 4 is your diastolic BP. Guys, this is the latest guidelines, European Society for Hypertension. According to this, if your systolic BP is lesser than 120 and the diastolic BP is lesser than 80, it is optimal BP. But before this is your normal, but according to this guideline, this is the optimal BP. The normal BP is, systolic BP should be 120 to 129 and the diastolic should be 80 to 84. So there are major changes in this guideline. So you can follow this, guys. Hypertension is divided into 2 types, primary and secondary. 90 to 95% of cases is primary and 5 to 10% of cases is secondary. Mostly primary is idiopathic, we don't know any cause. Secondary, as you know, there are some secondary causes due to which hypertension is occurring. There are some factors leading to hypertension. Factors leading to hypertension, mostly environmental plus genetic. But the strongest independent factor is obesity. It is the major cause for hypertension, definite cause. And we can also say diet high in sodium. If the diet high is sodium, it major factor for hypertension. But mostly everybody missed to say this. But the diet low in potassium, calcium and magnesium. These are some factors. And stress. Other factors are alcoholic consumption, low vitamin D diet, high fructose diet and lack of exercise. So we have completed the environmental factors. Now we are going to see the genetic factors. If either patient is hypertensive, the risk for child will be 10 to 15%. But if both parents are hypertensive, the risk will be 30 to 40% of chance. The main gene involved in hypertension is alpha adducin gene. Let's see what's the pathogenesis. We have know already the leading factors are genetic and environmental factors. We are dividing into two types: volume dependent hypertension and pressure dependent hypertension. In volume dependent hypertension means due to high volume there will be hypertension, but here due to high pressure there will be hypertension. In volume dependent hypertension there will be increase of sodium and water intravascularly. This is the cause for pathogenesis. But here in pressure dependent hypertension there will be RAS axis and sympathetic axis are overacting. In volume dependent hypertension we have to know the term pressure natriuresis. What does it say? In a normal person you can't get volume dependent hypertension. As long as the kidney is normal, it's not possible to have volume dependent hypertension. In normal kidneys, if there is an increase in cardiac output due to volume dependent hypertension, there will be an increase in renal blood flow. So there will be an increase in renal medullary flow. This causes increase in hydrostatic pressure of the kidney. So if the hydrostatic pressure of the kidneys are increased, there will be an increased excretion of sodium and water. So the cardiac output will become normal. This is how the pressure natriuresis works in normal kidney. So it's not possible to have volume dependent hypertension if you have normal kidneys. In pressure dependent hypertension, as we already know, RAS axis and sympathetic axis overactivity can cause vasoconstriction that further causes increase in peripheral resistance, and due to environmental and genetic factors it causes endothelial injury. By this factor it causes endothelial injury. This injury further lead to smooth muscle proliferation. If there is a smooth muscle proliferation, the size in the vessel become decreased, so there will be a increase in peripheral resistance that further lead to hypertension. In vasoconstriction it leads to hypertension, and the smooth muscle proliferation also lead to hypertension. This is in pressure dependent hypertension. Now this hypertension further leads to damage of endothelial cells, and it causes extracellular matrix increased and smooth muscle proliferation. So if you see in patho, it looks like hyaline arteriosclerosis. We say this as hyaline arteriosclerosis. Arteriosclerosis means thickening of artery. So in this stage we call it as benign or primary or essential hypertension. If the hyaline arteriosclerosis is formed, if the patient is already having arteriosclerosis, it may worsen it. In 5% of patients, the arteriosclerosis may rupture or embolize in small vessel. The emboli may travel to small vessel and then it may block. It is called malignant hypertension. Like in primary hypertension, we may say hyaline arteriosclerosis. In malignant hypertension, in patho, we see as hyperplastic arteriosclerosis or fibrinoid necrosis or onion skin chain. These are patho findings. Now we look into how the sympathetic system works in hypertension. The sympathetic system overactivity causes vasoconstriction. It may cause hypertension. The hypertension further leads to target organ damage. As we concern to the heart, target organ damage will be left ventricular hypertrophy. It may also a risk factor for ischemic heart disease. So sympathetic overactivity causes vasoconstriction through beta 1 receptor. It also activates RAS system. And what are the factors that lead to sympathetic overactivity? In conditions of dyslipidemia, diabetes, obesity, smoking, oxidative stress, it all leads to endothelial dysfunction or endothelial injury. It may stimulate the overactivity of sympathetic system. Even in renal ischemia, it causes sympathetic overactivity. Let us look into RAS. What are the stimulus for renin release? Prostaglandins, beta 1 receptor, and decreased renal perfusion. In human plasma, prorenin is present 5 times more than the renin. The renin is produced in juxtaglomerular cells. Okay, what is the function of renin? Renin converts angiotensinogen into angiotensin 1. That is the function of renin. And the further angiotensin 1 is converted into angiotensin 2 by the enzyme ACE kinase 2. This is the enzyme which converts angiotensin 1 into angiotensin 2. It further acts as a enzyme for breakdown of bradykinin into inactive peptides. Angiotensin 2 acts on angiotensin 1 receptor and angiotensin 2 receptor. If the angiotensin 2 acts on angiotensin 1 receptor, it causes production of aldosterone, which causes vasoconstriction and increase in sodium and water retention, which further causes increase in BP. But if it acts on angiotensin 2 receptor, it causes vasodilation, natriuresis, and also inhibits cell growth. So there will be an increase in BP. So in management, if you use an ACE inhibitor, it inhibits the angiotensin 2. So you will lose the effect of angiotensin 2 receptor. So if you use angiotensin receptor blockers, we can selectively block angiotensin 1 so that we can get the effects of angiotensin 2 receptor. Why hypertension is so important? Because it causes the target organ damage. If we concerned with heart, it causes left ventricular hypertrophy, which leads to diastolic dysfunction. Till now, we have the medicines for systolic dysfunction. We don't have any proper drugs for diastolic dysfunction. It's a very serious condition. In brain, it leads to stroke, also causes multiple lacunar infarct, which causes cognitive decline. In kidney, it also affects the RAS system and leads to renal artery stenosis. Also, the hypertension leads to peripheral vessel occlusive disease. How we know that? We can check by ankle brachial pressure index. If it is less than 0.9, it is a peripheral vessel occlusive disease. Okay guys, this is part 1 of hypertension. I will soon upload the part 2 of hypertension, the management and the treatment of hypertension. This is my first video guys, so do forgive if any mistakes in this. Thank you.